In this episode, we'll listen to attorney Terry Jackson talk about how his law firm was able to find success during the pandemic. Terry, I know that the practice of law, like every industry, was dramatically impacted by COVID and the pandemic. If you would maybe share with our viewers some examples of cases that you tried or settled coming out of the pandemic and what that experience was like.
Sure. The first case that comes to mind, I had a case. It was a rail case. When I say a FELA case, rail worker was injured catastrophically, was paralyzed from the mid-waist down. We were set for trial right before the pandemic hit, and fortunately we were able to resolve that case about 8 to 10 months inside the pandemic in the case. But it, like most cases, was attributable to the work you do before trial, not what you're going to do at trial or mediation. The die is typically cast in cases you're going to try before you ever get to mediation or trial, and that's why that case was able to resolve. The second, it was a trucking case. There were two missionaries, one killed, one had a catastrophic brain injury, multiple defendants, and the case was complex enough that with issues of agency and statutory employment, hidden motor carriers, those type of issues, that we settled the case in stages over a 3-4 year period. And the last settlement occurred last fall as we were getting ready to try the case in federal court.
So one of the things that we've heard from time to time, speaking with trial lawyers, is that the pandemic helped trial lawyers be smarter in some respects about the way they try cases. And so the technology that we're using today, the Zoom, the video, do you find now that even post-pandemic, a lot of your discovery, depositions and whatnot are managed via this type of technology now?
They can be, Donna. Not that I'm old school, but I'm old school. If it's a critical witness, an expert, a defendant, a critical control employee for a corporate defendant, you need to be in front of them. I can see a lot of your gestures and movements today, but you lose some of the body English, so to speak, if you're not in the same room with a critical witness in the case. Now, but as it relates to courtroom technology or managing a deposition, you can still have a live deposition, bring computers or screens for the witnesses, and manage your exhibits. Zoom and some of the other platforms, Microsoft Teams, are terrific for managing a lot of exhibits in a case so that you're not fumbling with folders or you forgot it back in the office when you got on the airplane. Even if you had that happen to you, you can have your paralegal or someone in your office Dropbox access your server, have all your exhibits there in real time, and a prepared mind going into a deposition. It's made things a lot easier for what I call document intensive witnesses, whether it's a safety director in a trucking case or an engineering expert in a boat or carbon monoxide case, where you're having to go through standards, regulations, facts pertinent to the case, diagrams, those type of things. So it makes it easier to manage a witness with Zoom and some of the technology. And the good thing about the pandemic, it's also forced the courts to get into the 19th century. I haven't said 20th or 21st century. There's still some institutional reluctance by judges to use technology or allow it to be used or to facilitate its use. But we're hoping to get the courts into the 20th century and then catch up with us in the 21st century real soon.
That's a great observation. One final question on this topic about the pandemic and the impact on trial lawyers. Did you actually try a jury case during the pandemic, and what was that like if you did?
When I say pandemic, I consider the first 18 months, 2020 and through June of 2021. So the answer is no. And I don't think many people did. I think there were a few exceptions around the country. Here in Georgia, in both state and federal court and in the Southeast, the courts were somewhat paralyzed by the idea of jurors getting on there, witnesses, parties, and attorneys. And there were a few stories coming out, attorneys getting COVID during that time, witnesses, experts. So the short answer is no, I did not. And that gave insurance companies and big corporations a little bit of leverage. When I say a little bit, a good degree of leverage over plaintiffs during that time period.
Just another reason to slow the wheels of justice down a little bit more, right?
Well, or more callously, time value of money, present value. If we can hang on to X a little bit longer at this percentage, or we think we can get better than market rates, it changes the dynamic if they're not on a trial calendar and facing the real specter of a trial or having to deal with folks like me who try cases.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for your comments and observations about jury trials and trial work in general during the pandemic and post-pandemic.
Thank you.